Howdy, everybody in YouTube land. Welcome to today's episode of Retro Computing Shenanigans. Alright, so I went ahead and got the new chip in, the new Paradise chip, and unfortunately, no change in the behavior. So I am currently waiting on a NGA card someone is sending me to try that out, which I know will work fine, but I'm going to get the MGA card in. But before that arrives, what I want to do is talk a little bit about what I've been doing with the circuit. So now, what I've noticed is these pals are basically, they control everything. With the MGA card I'm getting, I should be able to take the ROM and the RAM and all that stuff off and put it on the card and test it to see if there's any issues with this, but I don't think there's gonna be. And this obviously was replaced now, so, and that didn't make any difference, which, you know, people on YouTube kind of warned me that it was probably not gonna make a difference, and they're right, it didn't make a difference. So what I've figured out is I was looking at the Commodore version of the MGA CGA style schematic, and it's similar, but it's very different. So, for example, this 646 transceiver sits between this 245, which this 245 is connected to the ISA bus. And then on the other side of that 245 is connected to the rest of the circuit there. So if I pull up this guy, I don't need you. You're useless. You're also useless. This is, I don't know what that is. I don't care. So that's the 245. And, you know, one side is the bus of, you know, on the ISA bus. But, so, if we look here, we have this guy, pin 11, which is connected to 26 to 6845. So 11 and 26, which is true. That is accurate. But then on the other side, this guy is connected to here, here, and here. And also here. So this sits in between. But I can't find a 646 anywhere on this. So that would be this circuit here. The VMD. So the VMD circuit follows through over here. So we follow VMD, which is connected to the RAM. It's connected to the 273, which is here, as well as 2764, which is here, which is true. This is true. But it uses a 374 and a 244, which this doesn't have. It has a 646. And then the other thing I also did was I connected, see, bit 7 comes down on the memory bus address. Actually, 7 comes down. It goes into 3 of this PAL here. So what I did was I connected to bit 7 with my meter, and I checked all of these PALs. Nope. So it is not, it's similar, but it's not the same enough to the point to where I can't do anything with that schematic. But it does give me a peek into how the circuit works a little bit, but it is completely different. So the only way we're going to be able to fix this, in my opinion, is we would have to, first off, we'd have to reverse engineer this back into a schematic so we can understand how everything is wired. Then we would have to take these PALs one at a time and do what I did with the Weather Star and run them through the tools to bit bang each PAL, because I think these are combinational PALs, they're not registered. So bit bang these PALs into a bit stream, which then gets factored into Boolean logic equations, PAL equations. Because then we could take those equations and then we can compare those equations for each chip against a schematic and be like, well, does that make sense? Yes or no? And then we'd have to compare that based on how the MGA card works from a programming standpoint to figure out, okay, well, these addresses are used for the I/O and this, and the memory addresses for XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And then compare it against the logic and see, oh, well, does it make sense? Yes or no? Because here's the thing. I could dump all of these PALs, and if one of them's bad, which I know one of them is, but if one of them's bad, we could be missing an output bit, like bit 3. And the equation would be completely missing out of the sheet, right? Well, I don't know if that where it's connected or how it's involved unless I have the schematic and understand from a programmer's point how this circuit actually works. So then I can look at the logic and be like, yeah, okay, yes, no, it works. Maybe it doesn't work. But also, one of the inputs could be stuck high or low and it's not decoding properly. You're going to see it in the PAL equations. It won't be immediately present, but when you compare the PAL equations against the schematic, you're going to be like, well, that doesn't make sense because it can't select this chip for XYZ. It's something like that. It would take a full reverse engineering and analysis of the circuit and the PAL dumps to understand which one's bad and where and why. Then once you get to that point, you would have to, okay, well, now we're going to have to write new equations that make sense for this. Let's say this PAL here. We'll write new equations and go buy a new 16 V8 from Atmel and program it. Throw it in there and hope that it works. And then you might have to tweak timings or something. Who knows? I mean, it's pain. It's pain, pain, pain. So unless I find another board and borrow the PALs or someone else dump the PALs for me, there's no way to know easily. So I think in the meantime, I took the PALs out and I stuck them in this box. I think in the meantime, I'm probably just going to get another card, which I'm waiting on, and just put it in there and just screw this thing because it's going to take a lot of effort, and I'm not sure how I'm going to proceed without another board to determine exactly which part is at fault. So this MGA CGA clone combo card, someone sent me that. So apparently it's a fairly common chipset. You can find the data sheet on that chipset. So I got this card. I went ahead and removed the PALs out of the board to prevent this circuit from decoding. And just for happenstance, I took the ROM and I took the two RAMs out and moved them to this card. So this is original to this board. And I have the old ones out here, or the ones that are for this card out here. So with that, I can power this thing on and it works fine. So, at least we have something that's working. So there's nothing wrong with the motherboard. There's nothing wrong with the ISA bus. And there's nothing wrong with the RAM chips or the ROM chip. They're fine. So, and then we just replace this chip. So what in this board could be bad? It's looking more and more grim. It's starting to look like these PALs are bad. One of those 6 PALs are bad, or 5 PALs, which I pulled them off and they're over there. So from a quick research I've done, there's a guy on the internet that has seen my past video. He picked up one of these machines and he has a website dedicated to it where he's done a ton of research. From what he's discovered, this board is made by Acer, which is not surprising. So this is just an Acer computer, so with a Delta Gold brand name on it. So I'm wondering, maybe there might be an Acer computer from a similar vintage that has the same onboard MGA hardware that I could steal the PALs from. Because one of those, I don't have another one of these boards, so I don't have a way to swap around these PALs to figure out if that's what the problem is. So this is just a Paradise Video, MGA, CGA, etc. board. Now, that's replaced. All these other chips are replaced. I'm kind of running out of ideas. So I'm becoming more and more inclined to just leave this card in there and cheat. The onboard parallel and serial will be, or parallel, not serial, but the parallel and CGA will be disabled because the same decoding network is for this chip as well, which is also the same chip that's up here. So the only issue is these jumpers are unknown. I had to put that jumper in just to get the thing to work, but these other ones, I don't know what they do, and I can't find data on this card. So I don't know if the parallel port's going to work yet. There's a lot of unknowns here. So unfortunately, it's not the conclusion that I wanted because I wanted to fix the onboard, but where am I going to find more PALs? I mean, they're specific to that setup. So Unfortunate reality, as more and more of these custom chips are going to die, we're going to start running into this problem. But here's what's weird. I went ahead and restored the circuitry back to normal on board. I got the PALs back in there, and I got this card in there. So, as far as I'm aware of, there's no way to disable the onboard that I can figure out. Now, that means these two cards are going to be sharing the same address space because they're the same thing. So, they're going to try to drive the bus at the same time, and they're going to try to listen to the same commands at the same time, and it's going to cause all kinds of problems, right? So let me turn the power on. But it doesn't. See that? It's not giving me any issues there. Now, if I unplug that cable and plug it in down here, no output. So that almost tells me that the decoding network is not working, so it's not selecting this at certain times. But I know it is because I see the states of the 6845 change when the BIOS is trying to initialize things. So I know some of the decoding is working, but that's weird. I figured I'd throw that one in there. You know, I'm starting to put this thing back together, and I have this ground strap I'm dealing with. Now, I don't remember exactly where this went, but I know where this one went, so I plugged that in. But the problem is, I don't know where that went. And it's got a natural position. You can see where it was. Now, I wonder, what if I left this thing loose? Let's say if this was screwed in over there on that side. I left this thing loose and not paid attention. See, I wouldn't have done something that stupid, but I'm also only human. And I'm wondering if I left that loose and it touched something on this board and that's what blew it up. And that's why it's doing what it's doing. That would explain a lot of things, actually. So I forget exactly where we left off, but this is the Delta Gold Elite XT class PC once again. If you remember in a previous video, we had like a beep code that was indicating that we had a video card fault. So we did some playing around. We pulled some chips and tried to figure out exactly what's going on with the logic ICs, and they were all good. Check that, it was fine. And remember, we replaced this Paradise Hercules control chip here. Made no difference. So the ultimate solution at the time was just pulling out the PALs, which I had to do that. Pulling out the PALs and just putting a regular old MDA card in there. This is not a Hercules card. This is an MDA card. I think it's an MDA card, so it doesn't do anything but text mode. And that solved our problem. Which, yeah, that's a solution. It works perfectly fine. But I'm just not happy with that. And trying to find a Delta Gold motherboard is nearly impossible. So I did some digging. And here's what I found out. You see that? That is an Acer 710, right? That certainly looks familiar. Let's see. That is an Acer MPF PC 710. I don't know which model or series or anything like that. But boy, those ports certainly look familiar. Well, minus the one port there. But it certainly seems like Acer is the OEM to this machine. Right? At least that's what I'm thinking anyway. So, I went on the Evil Bay and took a gamble. There was one motherboard listed on eBay. Not exactly cheap, but I mean, what else are you going to do? So I found a motherboard on eBay. Not exactly cheap, but this should hopefully. That came off. This motherboard's been sitting around for almost a year. Really? I need a new knife. motherboard is sitting around for about a year. Just now getting around to this. That certainly looks familiar. Have a battery. Oh, packing peanuts. I hate you. Yeah, this one, you can't put more RAM into it. You're kind of stuck. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that motherboard certainly looks identical to me. So, and what caused me to actually research this was there's actually somebody on the internet who actually surprisingly found my video looking for information. So there's another guy that ran into one of these machines and actually found the discs to the said machine. And I think he made a copy of the discs, and they're in a raw, like a Kyroflux format, so I don't know what to do with those just yet. But he's got the original Delta Gold discs for this particular machine, so I got in contact with him, which is funny how things come full circle. So, yeah, and then we've kind of theorized that this thing is indeed a rebadged Acer PC 710. So indeed, a Delta Gold is just a rebadged Acer. It makes sense. So this is just an Acer computer. Which, once I figured out what it really was, it certainly made it a whole lot easier to find the replacement motherboard or parts. Now, again, I don't know if this board's any good. I bought it as is. And it wasn't the most common board there was, but there was one on eBay. Actually, at the time, oh, come on. At the time, there was a whole machine on eBay for like $100, I want to say, which I didn't want to pay that, but it's like, okay, I should have, because this motherboard was $75 by itself. So, anyways, the things you do to make a computer work, right? It's like, where else are you going to find any retro computing motherboard like this? See, that someone... Alright, hang on. Okay. There, now it's out of the bag. So, that is basically the Acer 710. And someone labeled the bottom of it in 8088, which makes sense. And if we look at the two together, that certainly looks exactly the same to me. So we do indeed have an Acer 710 PC. We have the same Paradise video chip. We have the same RCA. We have everything's the same. But more importantly, we have the same PALs. So, what I was going to do is, I don't know if this board's any good or not. Quite frankly, I don't really care so much. It's a great parts board though, and I got some extra RAM if I need it, and ROM, and it's good parts. So, especially these custom chips in case they go bad. But more importantly, I have the PALs, and I'm hoping these are good. So what I'm likely going to do here is I'm going to take these PALs, because the original ones are in here. I kind of sat them out of the way so I wouldn't lose them. I was going to take these PALs and move them over into this board and see if this board comes back alive. I don't know if it will, and I could damage that one trying. I don't know, but you know what? It's all in the name of science. And at least we still have a fallback solution in case it all fails. We'll just leave the card in there and call it done. But for now, let's go ahead and start getting this out of the way. And I want to start getting these PALs out, and I want to check to see if they work in this particular machine. Alright, I went ahead and laid the hard drive card out of the way, disconnected the Molex so I don't keep spitting this hard drive up. So we just should be on the bare motherboard and floppy drive only. So if I turn the power on now, we should get the error beep. And we do, as expected. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just replace all these. I want to move all these pals into this board, and I want to see if this board comes online. Let's hope it does. I mean, this could be a knockoff chip. That's entirely possible. But I have a legitimate one right there, if that's an issue. So, yeah, let's give this a try. Because I remember I got this off of eBay, I think. And the original chip started getting really hot really fast, if you remember. And I think I might have done that by accident, like with ESD or something. Who knows? It's hard to say. But yeah, PC 710. They're labeled. Now, I kind of hope they didn't lock the security fuses on these. Because if not, I can get a programmer and I can dump these chips. And then once I dump these chips, we can throw them on archive.org. Because if I've already got a bad PAL, then who's to say that one of these don't go bad later? But anyways, the one chip that I don't know if I tested, I don't know if I tested this one. Because this one could be bad too. Who knows? Alright, so this board is exactly the same. This is hilarious. This board is exactly the same. So, yeah, because this contains all the timing circuitry and everything to the onboard video, as well as the address decoding network so the BIOS can actually find it. Because the problem is the BIOS is not finding the video hardware. It doesn't see that it's present. So I'm hoping, because this whole section of the board is dedicated specifically to parallel port and to all of that. So parallel and video. I'm hoping this works. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping this works. This will let me know if we have a problem with the PALs at least. But if it still does the same thing, at least I know it's not an irreplaceable component that's bad. So there's always an upside to a potential failure of this. And this thing even has, I bet this BIOS, if I put that in here, it won't say Delta Gold anymore. It'll say Acer 710. Alright, U75 and U71. It's even the same. So here we go. Nope. Well, how about that? It's a different problem entirely. Alright, well. At least I know it's not the PALs. But that's why I bought the motherboard. So I can do chip swapping. This one's got a modification. But yeah, this is one of those situations where, man, I don't like that. There we go. Let's put you in here. So that will roll that out. No. Huh. I wonder. That's interesting. So. It looks like this one was set. See, this one's got the mono color switch. You can see where this board has provisioning for it, but it's not there. So. Alright, well, we know that it's not the PALs, and it's not this guy. Then what is it? You know what? What's a good idea? I think we should take this guy here and put it back in this board, and put the Delta Gold chips into this board. Because, well, I mean, I'm creating an unknown because I don't know if this board's good anyways. But it would be absolutely hilarious to find out. Right? Because that's easier than unsoldering and swapping chips until I find the right one. So let's do that. That makes more sense. Oh, I just noticed that I had this disabled. It was over on A, which if you look at this chart, A shows disabled. So, alright, that's now enabled, just like it is on this one. Now, I stuck the Delta Gold chips on here because I was going to test this board, but then I caught that. So let's try again. Huh. Well, how about that? Alright. So we know we have a bad something. Let me pull this out. Because it could be this guy. Because I have the original chip that's in this box. But remember, it got blistering hot. So what's it do without that? Alright, so it does throw an error without that in there. It's got to be in there. So let's try U. Because remember, I bought this chip off of eBay. I think I mentioned that in a video. I should have a proper chip puller. I know. I should, but I do not. Yeah, this corrosion kind of like... And that chip was expensive too. Alright, so let's try that. Well, hey, it's not that one. That one's fine. I'll put you back over there. So it's one of these pals. Okay, let's figure out which one of these it is. So I gotta pull you back off the board. So one of those pals is defective. You know what's going to be upsetting? If this thing actually works. with Because it's scared now. Alright, I'm going to put you back over here. This would be the first time... I think this might be the first time I've ever run into a bad pal. Okay, not that one. Is mixing and matching these between the two different systems a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But it wouldn't be fun with retro computing and cursed totally normal computing without it, right? I'm going to put you down in there. Try it again. That one works. Put you back up there. I just figured I'd video the whole progress because why not? This one's hooked up to the crystal. So this is probably the oscillator. So if I'm missing clocks, it'll stop it from working. Really? I need the correct tool for this. Someone care to donate me a tool? Because I don't know where you'd find the tool for that. I'm sure Amazon has them. But I've always done it this way. It's painful to do it that way. I don't like doing it that way. Okay, let's try again. U75 is bad. Yep. There you go. U75, and I think that's the clock generator. It's defective. Alright. Let's put U75 back in here. Works. So we've got a bad pal, ladies and gentlemen. A bad pal. That's it. I never would have thought in a million years that the PAL would have gone bad. I don't know if I've ever run into a bad PAL. I'm hoping the security bits are not locked, because that'll prevent me from dumping these PALs. Alright, let's check this one. That one's good. Now, until I get a monitor plugged in, I don't know if this is actually any good. Alright, let's check the next one. There. Let's pull you. Let's see. Get out of your pinhole. Thank you. Plug you back up here for now. Alright, so try again. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That one's bad. That's it. So let me go grab a monitor. Alright, here we go. I got the PAL in there. I decided to take the sticker off the original, and it's a 16L8. So that means I can use the ROM method to dump that one over there, but yeah, that's a problem. I don't want the rest of them going bad. Oh, yep, there we go. Nice. We are golden, literally. Yay! So the onboard video is functional now. So our problem this whole time was that chip right there. Man, that's all it took. Just this one chip. Well, that just goes to show you that PALs can go bad. It's the first one I've run into, but I'm sure other people have run into it. I suppose the next step on this is, how do I actually fix the problem? So, sure, I can leave that chip in there from the parts board, but if that one dies, I'm screwed, right? So, I need to figure out... See, this is a... What is this? Come on. That's an L8, so I can dump it using the ROM tool. Well, not this one. That one's screwed, but I can probably dump that one. Possibly. I gotta figure out... Yeah, I gotta figure out how we're gonna do that, because the issue is I don't have a schematic of this board, so it's not like I know which ones are inputs and outputs, so dumping it like a ROM can be questionable. So I have a programmer. It's called a Super Pro, and I bought it just for this reason. So it's a Super Pro, and it's designed to work on a machine just like this that can actually read and write these old PALs. So as long as the security fuse is not set, and it's always a 50-50 shot whether it is or not, I can dump these PALs and actually store the JDEC file or the JED file on the, or I don't know if it's PAL ASM or JED or what it is, but I can store the dump on the machine and program a new one of these chips. That would be ideal. So we need to get a station set up with a programmer to see if we can read out this chip or any one of these, really. Alright, so this is one of a few programmers that is actually old enough to be able to read and write these PAL chips. And that's assuming the security fuse isn't blown in that chip, because if it is, well, we're kind of done. Now, this is an L chip, so I can read it like a ROM if the security fuse is blown, but that's not ideal. Because what would be awesome is if that security fuse is still intact, we can read that and save the JED file, the bitmap, fuse map file, and then program another one of those chips. So anyways, this is one of a handful of programmers that are old enough to be able to read that chip. The problem is, see, we have this proprietary cable that goes to it, but not only is it a proprietary cable, but we also have, which I had to buy this separately, a proprietary interface card, which is an 8-bit card. So we need equally as old of a machine to read and write these older chips. Now, I'm trying to figure out what machine I want to do that with. I do have the IBM 5155, which could be a good excuse to actually use this programmer. But I want to set up a dedicated machine for this, just for this kind of work, because there's a lot of chips that this thing supports, older CPLDs, like the ISP-LSI series, the PALs, the PLS, the PAL CEs, and all of these other ones. This programmer supports. So if you run into these older machines and these chips are not locked, this will dump them. Unless they're locked. If they're locked, you're kind of stuck. I think the GALs, the GALs, they can be glitched to be able to get dumped, but these PALs cannot. So if that's locked, you're done as far as I'm aware of. But let's hope for the best. There's a 50-50 shot that it's not locked. We will have to see. But the only way to know for sure is to get this programmer hooked up. So what we need to do is we need to get the software for it, but we also need to find the right machine that this programmer will work with. And according to the manual, and according to people I've heard that own these programmers, you can't really have anything newer than a 386 or 486, or there's too many timing differences where it just doesn't work. Unless it's a newer programmer, then it'll work fine. But for this one, you really got to be 386, 486 territory and older, all the way back to the XT. The XT supports this thing as well. So, I mean, I could just use that machine, but that's the device under test, so that doesn't really work so well. Now I got to go through my back room and figure out which machine to use with this. So the EduQuest is probably too new, and I have yet to do a video on that. That'll be coming up here before too long. And there's a motherboard sitting on the top of it for a reason, but I'll get into that later. I got a pair of Model 25s. I did a video on this one, but I have not done so on this one. I could use that. It's a 286 class machine, so that might work. I could use the ALR that we just did a video on, but then I got to drag out a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and all that crap. These machines are too new. That leaves my Model 30. But then again, I got to drag a monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and all that crap out for that. Oh, decisions. But I also have this IBM 5155. That might be my candidate, because at least that one, I can set the programmer on top and I got room and, all of that fun stuff. Now, I think that one has hard disk issues, because the last time we left off, and we have belt issues, which now, by the way, the belts are available for those drives now. They used to not be, but they are now. So I can get belts for those drives. If anyone's watched my previous video, I was having issues with the belts, but the hard disk finally died in it, the NEC drive, so I had to swap it out and put a Seagate in there, but I don't know if I ever finished setting it up. I'll pull that out, we'll check it. And then I got a pile of junk on the floor here that I need to do something with, but that's besides the point. So I've been playing with this thing, and I was able to get some PALs dumped. See, this one won't read. It reads all zeros, but this is the bad one, so I'm not surprised. So what I did, before I ruined anything, I grabbed my WeatherStar 4000 graphics card, and I was able to read these PROMs, or these PALs. So every single one of these PALs, including these two PLSs, are unlocked. The security fuses are not set. So all of these were able to be dumped using this method alone. So that's good because, well, A, it doesn't fix my original problem with the Delta Gold, but B, it fixes my issue with having the fuse maps for all of these chips. So I can take all of these chips now and program new ones in case they go bad. Because that was my problem with these 168s, is I could not read them to be able to determine, okay, well, if this one ever went bad, how do I fix it, right? Now I can. So we're good. Let me go grab the PALs out of the Acer 710 board and see what happens. Alright, I had to take off the label to see what it was to make sure it's right. So this is a 16L8A. So hopefully it reads. You're watching down here. It's looking like they locked these. So that is unfortunate. Yep. They locked these. So unfortunately, even though I was able to save one machine by dumping all the PALs, no such luck on the Acer 710. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to just pause this at the current moment in time because I can't go any further until I get... There's a couple of other reverse engineering tools for these PALs that I can get for reading them like a ROM. And these are the L's, so they can be dumped like a ROM to a degree. So, alright. I think I'm going to have to end it here because I can't go any further until I have the right tools for reverse engineering purposes. So, anyways, if you have a comment, please feel free to leave one. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching.